Major sponsors for Ableton On Air include Washington County Mental Health, where hope and support come together. Media sponsors for Ableton On Air include Parkchester Times, Muslim Community Report, www.thisisthebronx.info, Associated Press Media Editors, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, U.S. Press Corps Domestic and International, Anchor FM, and Spotify. Partners for Ableton On Air include Yachad of New York and New England, where everyone belongs, the Orthodox Union, the Division for the Blind and Visually Impaired of Vermont, the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Central Vermont Habitat for Humanity, Montefiore Medical Center of the Bronx, Rose F. Kennedy Center of Bronx, New York, Albert Einstein College of Medicine of the Bronx. Ableton On Air has been seen in the following publications: Parkchester Times, www.thisisthebronx.com, New York Parrot Online Newspaper, Muslim Community Report, www.h.com, and the Montpelier Bridge. Ableton On Air is part of the following organizations: the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, Boston, New England chapter, and the Society of Professional Journalists. Coming up on this edition of Ableton On Air, we focus on social work and the Torah, as well as mental health. We talk to Rabbi Andrew Kenner, licensed clinical social worker and rabbi. All that and much more when Ableton On Air starts right now. Welcome to this edition of Ableton On Air, the one and only program that focuses on the needs, concerns, and achievements of the differently abled. I've always been your host, Lawrence Seiler. Arlene's not here today. On this show today, we focus on mental health and social work, as well as the Torah and being Jewish. With us, we talk to Rabbi Andrew Kenner, licensed clinical social worker and rabbi. Rabbi Andrew Kenner, a licensed clinical social worker, is dedicated to helping individuals and families navigate challenges through both spiritual and psychological perspectives. After earning his bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, Rabbi Kenner worked for several years and in the management consulting industry before entering the nonprofit sector as a rabbi and social worker. He holds 2 rabbinic ordinations from the Rabbi Isaac Ehrlichman Theological Seminary and the Rabbinical College of America. He also earned a master's in religious education. In addition, Rabbi Kenner holds a master's in Jewish philosophy from Yeshiva University and has earned his master's degree in social work from Yeshiva University's Wurzweiler School of Social Work. Boy, that's a mouthful. And is currently completing his doctoral dissertation on what the role of rabbis in mental health is. Thank you very much for joining me on this edition of Ableton On Air. Let's go to the questions here. What is the role of a rabbi?
First, Larry, thank you so much for having me on this show. It is such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you.
Mm-hmm.
And your show does such wonderful things for the community and the broader community, the world community. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Okay.
Well, rabbis serve a number of roles. Rabbis inspire and educate Rabbis uh, play in or work in a number of different settings. It can be in schools, of course, in synagogues, delivering sermons and teaching the Torah, and providing spiritual and guidance to individuals and to couples and to families as well.
Okay. So what do you do as both a rabbi and a social worker, and how do these roles connect?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. Well, some people like to call these the helping professions, and rabbis and social workers really work very closely in tandem. And some of my current research is on helping to better understand that delineation between the role of the rabbi and that of the social worker. In short, rabbis tend to provide pastoral counseling, which is typically short term, for congregants or other members of the community that are looking for assistance or help or guidance
Mhm.
in life issues or psychological issues. Licensed social workers are using, they're licensed and trained to use actual therapy modalities to help these individuals, whether short term, medium term, or long term.
When you say modalities, what exactly is that,
Yeah,
or what does that mean? If you could break that down.
yeah. It's there's a certain conception that therapy is a one size fits all. But in reality, um, different modalities or different versions of psychotherapy exist, and perhaps even more and more as the field really expands. And so today we've moved well past the kind of traditional talk therapy that we all think of when we think of, Freud and his couch, with his patient on the couch, to uh, other forms of therapy that involve mindfulness, meditation, incorporating the somatic element, the body, and really trying to treat the human being in a more holistic way as
Can you
mind,
break it
body, and
down?
spirit.
I I know you're saying a lot of words, but what is you say semantic elements? So can you kind of break that down a little
Sure.
bit?
Yes. So somatic, the word soma means body. And part of what we're trying to do today in therapy and in social work is move beyond just talking in therapy to actually getting in touch with what the body itself is telling us. When we talk to each other, there's, the most of what's being conveyed is not even necessarily through words. It's through our body language. And so when we can get in touch with some of that more intentionally, that can lead to better outcomes in treatment.
Yeah. What is the Torah, and how does it serve as a guide in Jewish life?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the Torah is known in English as the five books of Moses, or in Latin as the Pentateuch, um, otherwise known as the Old Testament. The Torah is for Jews is our not only our um, eternal guidebook for life, but really an instruction manual for daily life.
Hmm.
The word Torah in Hebrew is related to the word hora'ah, which means instruction. And sometimes people assume that the Bible is sort of this history book. But in Judaism, we see it as a living, breathing document that provides instruction, not just thousands of years ago, but here in 2025.
So you say the Torah. So what is the difference? Myself and my wife being Jewish also. What is the difference between the Torah, the Tanakh, and the Mishnah? Is there any differences between the three books?
Yeah. So the word Tanakh is an acronym for the three parts of our written tradition, which stands for Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which are in Hebrew, in English is the prophets and the writings, which together with the five books of Moses constitute the Tanakh. So all of the prophets like Ezekiel and Isaiah, right, and as well as the book of Psalms by King David, all of those are part of our tradition, our written tradition, known as Tanakh. The Mishnah is the foundation of the rabbinic oral tradition. And so we believe that the Torah was given approximately 2,000 or over 3,000 years ago now, over 3,300 years ago at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. And so there was a written part of the Torah that was given, famously the Ten Commandments. But in addition to that, Moses also received a way of understanding the text and interpreting the text. And for now thousands of years, all of the rabbis and the sages across the millennia have utilized those principles of interpretation to extract meaning and law from the Torah. And so the Mishnah is the basic foundation of that, and the Talmud is based on the Mishnah.
Okay. So, in what ways, and this kind of piggybacks, in what ways can the Torah provide support and guidance for individuals with special needs? That's a big question there.
Yeah. So going back to that idea of the Torah as an instruction manual, Judaism at its core is a religion rather, and a faith of community, camaraderie, unity. These are the basic foundations of Torah. In fact, Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest Talmudic sages of all time, famously said that the mitzvah to love your neighbor as yourself is the great principle of Torah. And if you look in the Torah itself, there are many, many verses that speak about some of the most vulnerable members of the community, including widows and orphans and people of that sort. Judaism has always expanded that understanding of vulnerability to include the disabled, special needs, and so on. And so the idea of inclusion is truly built into the fabric of the Jewish community, and continues to be to this day.
Now, I'm going to kind of add some, a couple more questions here besides what we got. What are the misconceptions? You're a social worker, first and foremost, and also a rabbi, but a social worker. What are the misconceptions around people with special needs that, that in your professional work that you've seen or, heard, that people don't know about?
Yeah, so many people, the term special needs, as you know, was not always used for this population, this
Matter of
community.
fact, there are certain words that weren't used. The word retarded is one of them. But
That's
go
right.
ahead. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I think many people assume, or many people do assume rather, that special needs is some sort of euphemism. It's a nice way of saying the other words. The Jewish approach, and this was an approach very much taken by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, was that the term special needs is not a mere euphemism. It's actually a more accurate description of the community. So yeah, according to Judaism, we all have 613 commandments to fulfill. And so when there's an individual in the community who may not be able to fulfill some of those in the same way, one way to look at that is that this person seems to be at a lower stature than other members of the community. But the deeper understanding of that is that this person has perfected that aspect of themselves. And they are even higher in some ways than the average member of the community. And so they are truly special, as it were. In Hebrew, it's Mitsuyanim was the language that Rabbi Schneerson used in reference to a group of disabled Israeli veterans that had come. But this could apply to members with physical disabilities and mental disabilities and other disabilities that they are truly special in the most honest and earnest use of the term. And I think that that's something that people don't always appreciate about the Jewish approach to special needs.
Okay. How does Jewish tradition, with Hashem's help, promote healing and inclusion for people with special needs?
Yeah. So, healing can take so many different forms. And, Dr. Viktor Frankl, who wrote a wonderful book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was a Holocaust survivor himself and a physician. So, he speaks about the importance of always treating the human being as what he calls a bodily, psychic, spiritual totality, which means we all have a mind, a body, and a spirit. I think that so much healing takes place not only at the level of the mind and the body, through therapy or through other forms of healthcare, but Judaism really emphasizes the importance of healthy spirituality. And even more than that, Judaism recognizes that the health of the mind and the body is rooted in the health of the soul, of the spirit. And so putting spirituality first and exploring spirituality, the spiritual needs of everyone, including members of with special needs, members of the community, is extremely important from a Jewish perspective.
So, historically, people with special needs often who are institutionalized or hidden. Okay, hold on. Let me repeat the question. Let me go back here. Sorry. Historically, people with special needs were often institutionalized or hidden, even within Jewish families. How has the Jewish community's approach changed over time?
Right. So, going back to a thing we spoke about, the idea that every member of the community is responsible for each other. And the Talmud says, "Kol Yisrael Reilim Ze Leze." Every member, every person is a raven means to be mixed or is intermingled with everybody else. And so speaking about this historical trend of going toward deinstitutionalizing members of the community. It's amazing. Yeah.
Because I'm sorry for interjecting. Because
No.
going way back in the 1970s, I don't know if, like I said, I'll send you the clip when I get a chance. Geraldo Rivera went over the wall to this horrible institution, Willowbrook State School, which is now part of Staten Island College, part of the City University of New York. But the individuals there were in their own feces. They were force-fed. They were hepatitis vaccine guinea pigs. So,
Yeah.
how I mean, and also Letchworth Village was another one in Rockland County. People died there. There's a graveyard, but and it's a reminder of what the state did, and then they went to court to try to improve the wrongs. Sometimes you can't sweep stuff under the rug, but you can make things better.
Right.
They have group homes and so on and so forth. But are we going? Hopefully, we don't go back to that. But there are still 41 or 40 states that are still institutionalizing people with disabilities.
Yeah.
How has it changed, and past, present, and future, and what can we do to make it better?
Yeah. Well, it's important that we learn from history and from the former abuses that occurred in the past and making sure that they don't occur again. And we continue to be increasingly inclusive of
Mm-hmm.
members of the special needs community. There are a number of Jewish agencies that create group homes and embed these resources within the Jewish community so that these members can be fully included
Mm-hmm.
and not, and we can continue to move that dial in the right direction. Um, it's amazing. There was a famous rabbi named the Chassam Sofer who lived he was the premier rabbi of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Moses Schreiber, known as the Chassam Sofer. And he's writing in the early 1800s, just to give a sense of time. He ruled in a specific case that a young girl, I believe, with special needs, was not only the responsibility of her own father, but the responsibility of the entire community to care for this girl. And so I think it's an amazing idea to think about a rabbi writing like that in the early 1800s
Mm-hmm.
about this sense of inclusion and
Okay.
um, and community responsibility.
Um, are all synagogues disability friendly, and what are some challenges, and how can communities improve accessibility in this area?
Yeah, I caution to say all. I do think that many synagogues.
By the way, if we go over a couple minutes, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I will say that many synagogues today have incorporated um, ramps and other physical features that provide inclusion for certain physical disabilities and so on. In addition to that, there are large print or even braille versions of prayer books and other Jewish books. Um, I think that funding always becomes important in these areas so that
Is funding a
um,
problem with some of these situations?
yeah, it's a good question. I don't know enough about that to comment. I know that like all religious institutions, which are nonprofit, rely on certain forms of funding to be able to provide these resources, and make sure that everyone feels comfortable, everyone has a place in the synagogue.
Um, okay. What services does your rabbinical agency provide individuals with special needs and their families? And we might at this time, besides the next two questions or the next three questions, we might put up the bulletin board. So go ahead, like if we want to mention your rabbinical affiliation.
Okay. Um,
Yep.
So I'm not sure about I just Larry, I don't know if we want to do the I'm not sure if we want to pull up any specific affiliations just because I'm not officially representing them.
Okay,
So
but
maybe we'll
go.
move to the next question.
Okay, moving to the next question. Sorry about that. I can
No.
I can that. Um, so what qualities make a rabbi an effective social worker, and how do these two roles complement each other?
Yeah. One of my mentors once said that rabbis help people to be Jewish and social workers help them to be you-ish, to be more like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these two elements they coexist. There's the communal identity that we all have being part of certain communities. So in this case, being Jewish makes us part of the Jewish community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the same time, there's the importance of stressing the uniqueness of every member of that community. I think that that's one aspect in which rabbis and social workers can work together to help people. The other thing is that rabbis and social workers need to have a lot of empathy and understanding for not only people's needs, but their inner needs, their feelings. And when it comes to more vulnerable members of the community, it's that much more so important that we're sensitive to their needs and we're understanding and empathic.
What does empathic mean? Quickly.
Yeah, it's really a sense of deep listening and witnessing, of really feeling another person's plight and truly caring. And the Torah says, "V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," that you should love your neighbor as yourself. And one of the ideas is to truly care about another person as much as we would, for ourselves and our own needs and our own feelings.
Okay, this is a big one. Scholars like Moses Montefiore. Hold on. Scholars like Moses Montefiore. Is it Montefiore or Montefiore?
I think it's Montefiore.
Okay, I apologize. Scholars like Moses Montefiore have contributed to Jewish thought and social justice. Are there any Jewish scholars whose writings can provide insight or support for individuals with special needs?
Yeah, we mentioned earlier the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, and there's a number of correspondences that the Rebbe had with social service agencies regarding the needs of the special needs community, the some of the themes we mentioned earlier about the true special qualities of this community and recognizing that. The Rebbe spoke about the importance of providing adequate educational resources for this community, and especially about the notion of inclusion. And so I would recommend looking into those letters and those writings.
Okay. Is there a specific version of the Torah, the Mishnah, or the Tanakh, or all three, that's accessible for people with disabilities and has made it more accessible or designed for people with special needs?
It's a wonderful question. We can follow up with some resources. I believe that ArtScroll, ArtScroll, is a Jewish publishing agency that has created a Tanakh in large print and other resources as well. There are other agencies or Jewish organizations that have also made things available in large print and so on. And so, we're more than happy to share some of those resources with the community.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank you for joining me on this edition of Able Din on Air. For more information on Able Din on Air, you can go to www.orcamedia.net. That is www.orcamedia.net for anything that you've seen today or want to see on Able Din on Air. Thank you, Rabbi Andrew Kenner, for joining me on this edition of Able Din on Air. See you next time on the next edition of Able Din on Air.